Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Happy Nityananda Trayodasi.
Ciao. Today's auspicious Parents' Day of Lord Nityananda. So you can see he's here, all his friends. He brought them all with him. So they stay up throughout the whole reading. Alright, it's Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 6. Which is Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So it's verse 6, second canto, chapter 10. This is the last chapter in this canto, I believe.
Yes, it is.
So, the merging of the living entity along with his conditional living tendency with the mystic lying down of the Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable, gross and subtle material bodies. Purport. As we have discussed several times, there are two types of living entities. Most of them are ever liberated or nitya muktas, while some of them are ever conditioned. The ever conditioned souls are apt to develop a mentality of lording over the material nature, and therefore the material cosmic creation is manifested to give the ever conditioned souls two kinds of facilities. One facility...
You have to forgive there's a workman outside.
Yeah, literally outside a window. Oh dear. Gesundheit. One facility is that the conditioned soul can act according to his tendency to lord it over the cosmic manifestation. And the other facility gives the conditioned soul a chance to come back to Godhead. So after the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, it's a long paragraph, isn't it? So after the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, most of the conditioned souls merge into the existence of the Mahavishnu personality of Godhead, lying in his mystic slumber to be created again in the next creation. This is what I was saying, that Asheshka Prabhu was saying, we've all been there. We've all been, sucked into Mahavishnu and then come out again. It's pretty cool, no? But some of the conditioned souls who follow the transcendental sound in the form of Vedic literatures and are thus able to go back to Godhead, attain spiritual and original bodies after quitting the conditional gross and subtle material bodies. The material conditional bodies develop out of the living entity's forgetfulness of their relationship with Godhead. And during the course of the cosmic manifestation, the conditioned souls are given a chance to revive their original status of life with the help of revealed scriptures, so mercifully compiled by the Lord in his different incarnations. Reading or hearing of such transcendental literatures helps one become liberated even in the conditional state of material existence. All the Vedic literatures aim at devotional service to the personality of Godhead, and as soon as one is fixed upon this point, he at once becomes liberated from conditional life. The material gross and subtle forms are simply due to the conditioned soul's ignorance, and as soon as he is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, he becomes eligible to be freed from the conditioned state. This devotional service is transcendental attraction for the Supreme, on account of his being the source of all pleasing humours. Everyone is after some pleasure of humour for enjoyment, but does not know the supreme source of all attraction. Raso vasa rasam he eva yam labda vanandi bhavati. The Vedic hymns inform everyone about the supreme source of all pleasure. The unlimited fountainhead of all pleasure is the personality of Godhead. And one who is fortunate enough to get this information through transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam becomes permanently liberated to occupy his proper place in the kingdom of God.
Okay, so what did you get out of that paragraph?
Some of us get sucked back into the Mahavishnu, the conditioned souls that haven't accepted Supreme Lord and the path of going back to Godhead, and some are fortunate to go back in their original forms, bodies.
Okay. I find that this is interesting because there's a bit of a, I would say, a bit of a misnomer. There are the Nitya Buddhas and the Nitya Muktas. So the Nitya Muktas are eternally liberated souls, and the Nitya Buddhas are the eternally conditioned souls. So this nomenclature may tend to lead us to think that the Nitya Buddhas are just stuck in the material world forever, and they can't ever get out because they're Nitya Buddhas, they're eternally conditioned. But that's not the case, as this paragraph, as this purport points out, and also Prabhupada has said it in other places we've read. Basically, the Nitya Buddhas are conditioned, and it I guess the occurrence is that it seems like it's an eternity. Of course, they do go round and round and round again, trapped in the cycle of birth and death. But as we know, the Krishna consciousness philosophy is not likened to, say, the Christian philosophy, which means you get one chance and then you're condemned eternally to like a hellish condition. Excuse me. The Krishna consciousness philosophy is that we repeat our life cycle again and again according to our desires, but at any point at which we start to learn our lessons, we make progress and advancement, and specifically as we make progress towards devotional service, which this paragraph says all the Vedic literatures point to, because it is the process for salvation of the Nitya Buddhas, which means that the Nitya Buddhas can become, can achieve mukti, or liberation, or freedom from the cycle of birth and death, which goes against the idea that they're eternally conditioned. At the same time, I think it seems that it's possible, because the principle is that even if you are liberated in the spiritual world, in the spiritual sky, even in Goloka with Krishna, that the possibility exists through just the existence of free will, that one can also find himself in the material world again. So I think the thing is that when you're in the spiritual world, the idea is that you're eternally situated there. And in one sense, you are eternally situated there. As Prabhupada explains, that it's not that we actually leave there, it's that our consciousness kind of drifts into the material consciousness. Like that, then I think it's a bit of a misnomer that it's eternally liberated or eternally conditioned, because the eternally conditioned can become liberated, and the liberated can fall into the illusory energy. The potential there is the misuse, is either the proper use or misuse of free will. Sorry, I went on a bit. Is that too much?
No.
I just thought if I talk louder than these guys. So, anything you'd like to comment?
No, I think we've already added the 13th dimension to the Bhagavatam right there.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I can add something.
Yes.
So now I'll read as well. So text number 7. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being, or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, he is the supreme fountainhead and the absolute truth. Interesting. It's ashraya. Ashraya is the word that's used in, it's in the Sanskrit. Sa ashraya param brahma means that the reservoir, or the summum bonum, that is the term of the 10 points. Remember, this chapter is discussing the 10 subjects of the Bhagavatam, of which the most important one, or I think the 10th one, is ashraya, or the summum bonum. So this verse will cover that topic specifically. Synonyms for the supreme source of all energies as explained in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, are Janmad Yasya Yataha Badanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yajgyanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Iti Sabhyate, called Param Brahma, Param Atma, and or Bhagavan. The word iti used here in this verse completes the synonyms and thus indicates Bhagavan. This will be further explained in later verses, but this Bhagavan ultimately means Lord Krishna, because the Srimad Bhagavatam has already accepted the Supreme Personality Godhead of God, Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. The original source of all energies, or the summum bonum, is the absolute truth, which is called Param Brahma, etc. And Bhagavan is the last word of the absolute truth. But even with the synonyms for Bhagavan, such as Narayan, Vishnu, and Purusha, the last word is Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate, etc. Besides that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as a sound incarnation of the Lord. So Srimad Bhagavatam is equal to a sound incarnation of the Lord. So that in that way the Bhagavatam is non-different from the Lord. So by hearing and reading together Srimad Bhagavatam, we are taking ashraya, taking shelter of the summum bonum, the Supreme Lord. So ashram, coming from the word ashraya, ashram means place of shelter, specifically spiritual shelter. So like that. Krishna swadhamopaga te dharma jnana bihisaha klau nashta drisham esha puranarko dunoditaha. Thus, by general conclusion, Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of all energies, and the word Krishna means that. And to explain Krishna, or the science of Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam has been prepared. Do you want to read?
In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this truth is indicated in the questions and answers by Sutuka Swami and great sages like Shonaka. And in the first and second chapters of the canto, this is explained. In the third chapter, this subject is more explicit, and in the fourth chapter, even more explicit. In the second canto, the absolute truth as the personality of Godhead is further emphasized, and the indication is the Supreme Lord Krishna. The summary of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, as we have already discussed, is succinct. This Supreme Personality of Godhead in the ultimate issue is confirmed by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha. So it is concluded in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The complete subject matter is elaborately explained in the 10th and 11th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the matter of the changes of the Manus or Manvantaras, such as the Swayambhuva Manvantara and Chakshusha Manvantara, as they are discussed in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna is indicated. In the 8th canto, the Vaishvata Manvantara explains the same subject indirectly. And in the 9th canto, the same purport is there. In the 12th canto, the same is further explained, specifically regarding the different incarnations of the Lord. Thus, it is concluded by studying the complete Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Sri Krishna is the ultimate son of Brahman, or the ultimate source of all energy. And according to the grades of worshippers, the indications of the nomenclature may be differently explained as Narayan, Brahma, Paramatma, etc.
Interesting. Nice breakdown of where the topics are discussed in the Bhagavatam. That's really nice and useful. Anything else?
No.
Text number 8. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the Adhyatmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called Adhidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the Adhibhotic person. Interesting concept. So the individual possessing the senses, that's us, the jiva, we're known as the adhyatmic. And the individual controlling deity of the senses is the adidaivic, the devatas. So they control the senses. Ultimately, we know Rishikesham, Sevanam Bhakti Uchate, that the senses are controlled by Rishikesh, Krishna. Then the embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the adibhotic person. So that's the reflection or the external. So usually we use these terms adhyatmic, adidaivic, and adibhotic to describe the threefold miseries. Adhyatmic, mind and senses, those are miseries that come. Adidaivic means nature causes issues. And adibhotic means other people or other living entities causing problems. So interesting. Purport. The supreme controlling summum bonum is the personality of Godhead in his plenary portion of Paramatma, or the Supersoul manifestation. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:42 it is said, Ataiva bahunaitena kim gyatena tavarjuna Vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekam sena stito jagat. All the controlling deities like Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva are different manifestations of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who exhibits himself in such manners by entering into each and every universe generated from him. But still, apparently, there are divisions of the controller and controlled. For example, in the food controlling department, the controller of food is a person made of the same ingredients as the person who is controlled. Similarly, each and every individual in the material world is controlled by the higher demigods. For example, we have our senses, but the senses are controlled by superior controlling deities. We cannot see without light, and the supreme controller of light is the sun. The sun god is the sun planet. The sun god is in the sun planet, and we, the individual human beings, or any other being on this earth, are all controlled by the sun god as far as our eyes are concerned. Similarly, all the senses we have are controlled by the superior demigods, who are also as much living entities as we are, but one is empowered while the other is controlled. The controlled living entity is called the adhyatmic person, and the controller is called the adidaivic person. All these positions in the material world are due to the different fruitive activities. Any individual living being can become the sun god or even Brahma or any other god in the upper planetary system by a high grade of pious work. And similarly, one becomes controlled by the higher demigods by a lower grades of fruitive activities. So every individual living entity is subject to the supreme control of the Paramatma, who puts everyone in different positions of the controller and the controlled.
That which distinguishes the controller and controlled, i.e. the material body, is called the adibhotic. Purusha. The body is sometimes called Purusha, as confirmed in the Vedas in the following hymn, Sava Esha Purusha Ana Rasamaya. This body is called the Anaras, embodiment. This body depends on food. The living entity which is embodied does not eat anything. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
However, because the owner is spirit in essence.
Read that sentence again because it got broke up.
Alright, the living entity which is embodied does not eat anything. However, because the owner is spirit in essence.
Yeah. Which means that although the body is eating, but the soul isn't eating anything. It's not like the soul's digesting. The body is getting whatever nutrients it needs and producing the byproducts and waste, not the soul. What does the soul do?
Well, the soul food, isn't it? Hearing and chanting. That's the soul food.
Yes, you're correct. But the soul is simply desiring. That's what the soul's doing.
So the soul is desiring to have like avocado and halloumi.
Well, yeah. Because why? Because the soul is bewildered thinking that it is the body.
Right.
And that it can enjoy by eating halloumi and avocado.
Right. But when if someone, for example, ate that and put it in their mouth, the body is getting all the nutrients and fat as well, and the benefits.
And the non-benefits, yeah.
And it's quite enjoyable, really.
Yeah, but it doesn't have anything to really do with the soul. That's the point.
But the soul will clearly feel satisfied because it's all lovely.
Soul
What a
never
lovely
feels
lunch.
satisfied by anything external. That's why you have people who are as big as a house and need to be cut out of their houses, and they're not happy. They never were. They kept eating to try to please themselves.
That's true.
That's with food. But, people buy things, gadgets, people spend money to go on holidays. People spend money to do so many things, and so we spend money to get something that we think is going to make us happy, but it doesn't touch the soul. And the things that touch the soul, as
soul food,
my wife said, the soul food, most of that's free.
Yeah, I'd say it all is, isn't it?
I don't know.
Just pick up a book, or you got to pay. Got to pay something to cover the printing cost, as they say.
But to hear, and to chant, is more or less free.
You can dance by yourself. You can do little Harinam by yourself.
Yeah, remembering. So the 9 processes is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam. So Archanam, worshipping deities, that costs usually something. Vandanam, prayers, yeah, they do. The outfits cost, the little habits cost, everything costs. Yeah. Incense costs, whatever you bathe them with, it might cost. Vandanam, no, prayers, that's not. Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So these things, they don't cost. We miss one out though. Archanam, Vandanam. Good Lord. Oh. Yeah, Dasyam, Sakyam. Padasevanam.
Oh yeah, the way.
Padasevanam, yeah. Archanam, Vandanam, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Yeah.
Alright. The material body requires replacement of matter for the wearing and tearing of the mechanical body. Therefore, the distinction between the individual living entity and controlling planetary deities is in the Anarasamaya body. The sun may have a gigantic body and the man may have a smaller body, but all these visible bodies are made of matter. Nonetheless, the sun god and the individual person who are related as the controller and the controlled are the same spiritual parts and parcels of the Supreme Being. And it is the Supreme Being who places different parts and parcels in different positions. And thus the conclusion is that the Supreme Person is the shelter of all.
So you have the controller and the controlled. You have the devatas who are controllers. You have the jivatma who is controlled. But above all of them, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the shelter of everyone. And Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, they are our real shelter. So like that. So I think we can maybe conclude there.
Okay.
For today's reading.
Yes.
And thank you very much. Just a reminder, today is Lord Nityananda's appearance day. If you're hearing or watching this right now, or even if you're watching it another day, it's okay.
Like tomorrow when you will watch it.
Then remember that you can get a set of Chaitanya Charitamritas. We're having a campaign at the moment, and you can get a set for 100 quid or 125 if you pay the postage, and we'll send it to you in the post. And then you can start reading Chaitanya Charitamrita yourself, and about the pastimes of Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, and the Panchatattva. Okay, thank you all very much. Have an amazing day. Any concluding words?
Jai Nitai.
Jai Nitai.